Alright, welcome everybody to my Californithon recap type of thing that I'm doing. This is going to be probably a bit long. I wrote an outline here and it ended up being quite a bit longer than I expected, but we'll go ahead and see if we can work through, see what we can mention about this. I'll probably be doing kind of a mechanical thing a little bit later for the Californithon crew, just kind of commenting on the back end stuff. Because I know they had a discussion about that fairly recently, and I'd like to kind of share my thoughts on that. Um, I guess one thing that I would say, just right off the bat, for me, it was a mechanically struggling event, and I'll get into that. But as far as the event itself, when I actually got to, sit down, talk with people, discuss a hobby that we all are really passionate about and really love, it was a great event. Got to meet a lot of really cool people. And unfortunately, didn't get to talk to a lot of people that I actually did want to talk and meet with, but we'll get into that. So I'd like to preface this kind of with a little something that impacted the event, but in a way that might not have been as apparent to anybody that wasn't at the event. So leading up to the event, I had been sick maybe about 3 days before the event. I had just got done with being sick for about 5 days with something really bad, like respiratory wise. Not enough that I needed to be hospitalized or anything, but it was definitely giving me a lot of problems. Like, I had been coughing so hard that I had almost vomited, like, a lot, like multiple times throughout the week. Also, leading up to the event, I got in a third game that, well, didn't end up being gotten in, but I'll discuss that as well. My choice on that, by the way, the bouncer. I had heard that Studio was dropped, which was a little bit disconcerting to me. Studio, obviously, a very, very, how would I put it? A very visible member of this gaming community. So to see him dropping, it was a little worrying to me, just because I didn't know the background behind it. I don't want to speculate on that. That was just kind of my feeling going into it. I had only been made aware maybe a week before the event or something like that. I guess it must have happened very short notice. But I was optimistic about it, like, you got to kind of put those things behind, especially with a startup event. Not everything's going to run as according to plan, and I think the team did a great job with that as far as this, again, being a first event and the venue we had and, the kind of struggles that come with a startup. So let's see, what else do we have here? So picking that up for the bouncer, I basically had to develop a new route that was marathon safe in about 12 hours, which was a bit of a struggle, especially given the time slot. I believe it was about 5 minutes below what I had put as my estimate, but I knew I could make it work. I'd have to play well. So I had to kind of develop a route and de-rest in a very short amount of time. Getting to the event itself, drive was fine. I managed to get time off of work just nice and easy. I was going to be rooming with Mouse. That was something that we had set up, quite a bit beforehand, and, that worked out really well. And I figured Houseless Gamer, who was another person that we were going to be hanging out with quite a bit, especially with the race, and just in general, someone from the chat that, and the Soden community that I tend to be in the Discord with quite a bit, stuff like that. I figured he was going to be fairly close to the venue, but we'll kind of get there as we go along. So I arrive, and I ended up parking. And this was one of the things that was so struggling about the event in general. So I go and park, and there are 3 parking structures next to me, besides the one I chose to park in, and a small parking lot. And I didn't know exactly where the venue was at the time. I knew it was just in the area, so I decided, you know what, this is a covered parking. I'll go ahead and pay maybe a little bit more, and I'll know exactly where I'm at. So went in, got my ticket, got in there and parked. So I immediately had trouble finding the venue because where I had parked was actually like right in front of it. And from the angle that I was pointing at, the sign that had Esports Arena on it was actually straight like on the edge of it, so I couldn't read it at all. So I actually spent a little bit of time going, a mile back and forth trying to figure out where it was exactly. But I eventually got in there. I got to go in and walk past quite a few people that honestly I didn't know. A lot of guys I didn't really think about it at the time, but a lot of people that attended Californithon didn't really use webcams so much. when they streamed. So a lot of people that I didn't know just off the top of my head. And I was scoping things out, and something that I think is probably pretty typical of any type of event like this, again, especially since you might not know all the people, you don't know who's who. Maybe somebody that you were interested in meeting isn't necessarily there, so you kind of gotta shoot the breeze for a little bit. Everyone's a little bit standoffish, they're watching games and they're interacting, but it seems like everybody's kind of quiet. This would very quickly die down as the event went on. I feel like the atmosphere was very conductive with meeting new people. So I'm really glad on that. Let's see. So something else I wanted to mention from a technical aspect. Forgot to mention it, but before the event, I was supposed to pick up a laptop from a friend in order to assist in me making the interview for Vooligen for Talking Turbo, which I'll get into later. And it was supposed to be so that I could practice Guacamelee on, which didn't really work out. I don't know what happened, but I was supposed to get it 2 days before, and neither of the days, we couldn't make something happen. I couldn't get in contact with him. So that was really punishing for me in that respect. Going back to the event, another mechanical problem was my phone is not the best tool, or was not the best tool. I do have a smartphone now. However, at the time, it was locked out of texts because of a previous lock that was on my old phone. And that kind of carried over to the new one, even though I had unlimited texting, which was a little frustrating. I'd also like to say that Twitter Mobile sucks if you don't have the app, and even the app is really lackluster. So I wasn't able to really use Twitter to full capacity. A lot of the group chats that I was in, it wasn't giving me notifications, things like that. So communication was a little bit difficult. But, we're beyond that. You got to make it work. Again, sometimes things will come up, you got to roll with it. And that was really the story of the weekend, both on, the crew side running the event, and I'm sure for a few of the people coming to the event, that maybe this was, their first rodeo. So, I try to make the best of it, and, I end up seeing ANCAP, who comes in and he's immediately, pushing really hard on Ninja Gaiden 1, so got to talk to him for a while, and his friend, I don't recall his friend's name off of the top of my head. See, the thing is, this is another problem with me personally, is I'm very bad at names. But I know faces. I know, okay, I've met that guy. I know who he is, I know what he does or what I've known about him. It's just, names are hard for me. But his friend was really cool. I was really glad to meet him. It was really one of the nicer people that I met and kind of more outgoing, so I was glad to meet him. And, ANCAP's sitting there busting his ass on Ninja Gaiden 1. He's having a rough time on the demon fight, just getting poor patterns and just really trying to push and rush. When you're talking about a no reset marathon safe run, you gotta sometimes make a few concessions for speed. So, his training and his practice was rough. I'll give it that. So I also saw some of the guys watching the Super Mario Brother 3 player, and they were just sitting down and relaxing and kind of watching the end of a run. And one of the guys went and he sat down and he started playing Mega Man 3. And I didn't know it was fast at first, but immediately when he picked Magnet first, I was pretty sure, and then when he actually said something, I was like, that's who fast is. And it was really cool. I always mentioned it in his stream, but it was really cool to see him play, to see what physically he does to do the things that he does with his body and everything else. And just to see him do more of a run than maybe you would see. Because, when you're doing world record attempts, if something goes bad fairly early, you're instantly resetting. So it was cool to see him kind of progress throughout the game. He didn't necessarily do no reset runs, but he'd do, 2-3 stages at a time, do certain sections. So you got to see a good array of what he was capable of doing and everything. So it was really cool. And I remember, I wasn't sure if his humbleness was a front or genuine, or if it was just, kind of a, how would I put it? Some sort of ingrained, depreciate your value or something. Because if you talk to him about how strong he is in the game, or ask him for advice, or be like, wow, you're really good at this certain thing, he's always very humble about it. and always kind of points out that there are people that, oh, like, man, you should see this guy do it. He does it so much better. But, like, that's what's really cool is he says that, and the way I got it is it was in a very matter of fact way when I got to meet him and talk with him actually personally, and that was really cool. Like, he really cares about the community, and you can tell that on like the classic Mega Man side. And it was really awesome to just hear him talking about retro gaming and sharing a passion and talking about the people that he kind of looks up to and checks out and thinks are really awesome. So that was an interesting experience. Decided to go out to eat. Charlie's Burgers, I believe, was the place with those three good gentlemen. We ended up walking a bit further than I expected. I actually picked up my 360 out of the car, thinking that it was just going to be like, oh, we'll catch something close and then head back to the venue. No, we were walking. We probably walked about 4 hours, or not hours, 4 miles total. So that was kind of rough, but we managed to get back. And this whole time, I'm still hacking like crazy. Like, if there's one thing that it had to have looked terrible to people when I'm sitting there just like coughing the entire event, and sometimes really violently. I hope people didn't take that the wrong way, but I was still hacking up a storm, and I'd always told people, I was even making the joke, I was like, even at small cons, there's always seems to be patient zero of like some interdimensional sickness. So you always got to be really careful about, washing your hands and making sure that you're taking care of yourself. So it's at this very time when we returned from eating, that the mechanical problems really start to kick in. So I finally got an address for Houseless was, and found out that with traffic, it was going to be about 40 minutes away one way. So that was kind of disappointing that he wasn't going to be closer, but you know what? Houseless has a unique situation where he's got to make things happen, sometimes you got to concede. Sometimes you have to concede convenience to put yourself in a situation for success. So I know it's going to be complicated given the time, just because of when it is. It's getting closer to rush hour. And I was like, I have to leave basically now if I want to catch him before I'm just completely locked down in traffic. And I wanted to catch, Fastest Run at the time. So he was only planning on coming Sunday, which he did mention, but I didn't think that was good enough for the time that he put in. He put in a lot of work to try and prepare himself for the Soten Run, and he did a lot to kind of put himself in a good position to perform well at the event. And there were a lot of people that he wanted to meet there, and I knew that was the case, and that wanted to meet him, so I wanted to try to make that happen. So I wanted to try to get an Uber, actually, and just get an idea of the price on that, but I found out that you can't do that on mobile unless you get texts, which kind of shot that down immediately, because I couldn't get texts. So, after that, I was like, you know what, I gotta make a decision now, and I decided, I'm gonna go pick him up. And, me, I don't really like driving to places I don't know, but cell phone navigation makes that a lot better on me than usual. So I ended up meeting Houseless, and I mean, really the definition of just making it happen, kind of streaming out of a hotel room and, just with the type of life that he needs to lead in order to, just operate, It was interesting to see what he has to kind of deal with in order to produce a streaming experience, and it's kind of admirable what he's able to do with what he's given. And it seems, he's kind of standoffish about accepting stuff, it seems like, and I don't know if that's cherishing what's yours versus what's given, or you don't want to appear needy or anything like that. But, again, I knew that there were people that wanted to see him there, and I know that he was really passionate and interested in going to the event and meeting people as much as he could. So, I was just like, you know what, screw it. We'll take him, and we'll see what we can do about making it the best event we can. So we ended up getting packed up and going to the event, and I ended up repaying parking. So I repaid parking, and there was a nice woman there, but she also didn't mention that the parking structure was for a business. But I'll get into that. Uh, yeah. So I ended up repaying parking. Didn't get a warning that it was a business parking structure, and I managed to catch fastest run. It was rough beats. He did some really great stuff, but some of the stuff that he really wanted to show off just didn't really work out. And I knew immediately upon watching him and watching the first few mistakes what it was. I don't know if he would agree with me, but the biggest things that I noticed was that he's 10 feet away from a monitor that he doesn't play on. So, or 10 feet away from the TV, whatever it is. When you're sitting on the couch and the screen is that far away compared to the way most people play at their house or on larger TVs or something like that, it's just too far away. So, like, a lot of the stuff that he's looking at for cues and things like that, it's going to be different and it's going to be harder to execute, especially when you're doing, like, world record strats. And it was then that I knew immediately. I was like, this, I can't play this way for my race. And I'll tell you what, from what I understand at the time of this video, Fasta is in GDQ, SGDQ 2016 for Mega Man 3. And I can guarantee you that he will come in there a different marathon player. And he will come in much better prepared. Not just in his game, which I know he busted his ass to prepare himself for the game, but I think he will come in a much more experienced and prepared person when it comes to the intangibles that I'll talk about later, and that I've mentioned a little bit. So, got to have Houseless and introduce him to some people. Had a great time, spotting stuff that people were doing. We had like Zorlax doing Link's Awakening. Got to catch some Mischief Maker by the Intercom, which was really cool. He was a nice guy to hang out with and talk to. Also, Boix, really funny guy. Got to have some interesting chats with him. He ran Pepsi Man and I guess does some point-and-click adventure stuff as well, which is pretty... I've always kind of made the joke about it, but I might be a little interested to see what it's like. I've been really unimpressed with point-and-click adventure speedruns in general, but, I guess I should check him out, see if he can make them fun. Also plays quite a bit of Magic, which I touched on that a little bit. Probably should have talked a little bit more about that, because that's something I'm not as passionate about, but I love playing some card games in general. So, Rom ended up making it to the event, and it's an odd feeling that I want to say, even though I'm getting more and more comfortable doing this with people, especially meeting them in person. It's odd to meet somebody that's really someone that you I guess the closest word I can think of is like idolize, somebody that you really look up to in your field, even if it is a hobby. And there's like tons of people at this event that like really they're like still heroes in my eyes, like for all of the crazy stuff that they do in their games and how much effort they put into it. But like in the end you just got to realize that we're all just a bunch of dudes playing video games. So if you take too much and put people up on a pedestal too much, you're never going to be able to treat them in a way that's human, in a way that you can interact with people, that you can become friendly, that you can build camaraderie with these people, And that's really what you want to do when you meet people at events more often than not. And that's kind of what they want to do with you, So you try to make yourself open and accessible and talk to people as much as you can. See what they're interested in, all that good stuff. And it was really nice to meet Rom also outside of like a real like responsibility, And it also seemed like Rom was really relieved just to be able to relax and not have to worry about anything. He didn't have to run the event. He didn't have to worry about putting everybody up in like rooms or something for charity streams or anything like that. He got to be kind of more hands-off and just enjoy his time there. At least that's the feeling that I got. Which is probably really nice considering I guess he had been traveling extensively the last few weekends. I mean, I guess this was a travel too, but it seemed like he was a lot more at ease, which was nice. Got to meet Jeff. Got to talk kind of briefly with him a little bit, but just touch bases. The whole tech crew, this entire event, working extremely hard. A couple people that I can just point out, me, Got This, and Zorlax, both doing a ton of stuff behind the scenes, working the tech stations, checking wires, things like that. I'm sure there's tons of other people as well, but those were two people that kind of stood out to me that I saw often behind there. Despite the fact that both of them had runs that were rather demanding as well. But we all got to take time to joke around and kind of enjoy the event. I do hope that more staff are present to kind of relieve the pressure on his crew next time, but I'll talk about that more in another video. And you could tell he's focused at the time that I talked to him, was still fairly early in the event, but he was still getting a bit tired at the time. Like, I can only imagine like the setup was probably pretty hard for him and his crew. And you got to understand that pushing this hard is bound to cause problems, just both mentally and physically, for the people running the event. So, kind of to shift pace, I noticed Houseless is maybe a bit more off than, a bit more off to the side than more people. And, this tends to happen when you don't know people much. The online versus in real life scenario that I mentioned earlier about, that first hour or so that you come to an event and you don't really necessarily know anybody, and you try to find something to relate to. But I got to introduce him to a few of the people. Still seemed quiet in general, but that might just be his personality in real life. And I just really hope that he got a chance to really enjoy the experience, just because he did seem a bit quiet, but I hope he really enjoyed it. I know I did. Rom, at this time, kind of mildly proposed the idea of the multiplayer Dawn of Sorrow. So he kind of showed me an alternative route to the one we used before that was much more difficult. I brought my DS, and I like to try to be versed in quite a few games, so I gave that a try and we kind of worked it out. I didn't get to play much of my actual games for the event. And I'm not entirely sure why I chose that, but mostly I think I was just enjoying things, and I didn't want to have to dig things out of my car or bring them in, stuff like that. So Mouse came in later at that night, and he has the most convoluted setup. It looks like a broadcast monitor, the TV that he brought in, and tons of conversion cables to get an analog signal, I guess. He had a 150-pound TV or monitor or whatever it was. It had two huge heavy-duty metal handles on the side that you can use to haul it up, and it took the both of us to basically haul it upstairs to the streaming area for practice. But Mouse, super chill guy, really knowledgeable about the games that he runs, and just kind of shooting the shit in general. It was really awesome to be able to interact with all the Soten guys. Vuligen ended up coming by at that time too. He had already kind of taken care of himself, eaten, and we were about to leave to go eat as well. So, didn't get to see him too much at that time. But Vuligen was the other thing that I was worried about. He was a nice enough guy, though. Really cool to hang out and talk with. But I was also really, really focused on the interview as well. But we talked very briefly about it. And at the time that I was setting up this whole thing to do this interview, he seemed really interested and enthused about doing it and about the project in general. And it seemed like he really wanted it to succeed, and I do too, honestly. So it was nice to be able to connect on that, and hopefully things do work out on that end. I was a little bit disappointed that things didn't go as smooth as far as the actual interview went. Again, mechanically, not in content. But I was still very, very glad that he was so, in on it. He wanted to be a part of this. And that really showed as we got into that later in Saturday. So we got to meet Filthy Turtle briefly as well. He's the guy that made the Perlers for the event. Pretty cool dude. Works on the creative channel quite a bit. And again, another cool guy to just be able to talk easy with and discuss things. And it made a lot of really awesome merchandise, despite AnimeCon also kind of fast approaching. So he put in a lot of extra time to make the donation incentives for the event. So that guy put in a lot of work, and he should be commended as well. So we decided to go out to eat just before 9 p.m. It was about 8:40 or so. And we go outside, and the shutters are down for the parking structure. So I was like, that's kind of strange. By the way, there's nothing outside to indicate that these are they're public structures. They have a parking fee, and there's nothing that says that it's for businesses only, or that they're associated with the business. So I'm thinking, the gates closed. It's Friday under 9. Like, the person, maybe they just went out and had to do something. Like, they had to take a short break, or they had to grab a lunch, and, they don't have somebody else to work the gate. So maybe that's the case. No. um, so Jeff said that he was going to be along as well. He didn't end up coming, and that might have been a sign of things to come. And I mean that in the way, like, I don't know if he and his team really anticipated just how swamped with work they would be. But, again, it's commendable what they were able to do given how small of a team and how much setup they really had. And the lack of experience kind of coming into this with the event they had to hold. So we ended up going to eat. We went to some diner-style place. I think it's called, like, Norm's or something. Mouse got there first and reserved a table as Lucifer. And, when he says this, like, at first I thought he was joking, but then I was like, he's not joking, like, instantly. And I'm sure we aren't going to get called. And sure enough, literally everyone else was called before us. But they did actually call Lucifer to the table. And we got to have good company. It was me, Houseless Gamer, Mouse, Rom, and Filthy Turtle, just kind of relaxing and enjoying kind of a nice diner meal. I'm still hacking like death the entire time. But it was fun. We got seated. Filthy Turtle got to try waffles for the first time, and it sounded like he was enthused about that. I guess Mouse likes his hash browns black, like really, really dark. And something else I learned about him, he's a vegetarian, so that was, something that I didn't really know. Nothing big, but, I don't know, I thought it was noteworthy for some reason. And just kind of enjoying each other's company. I asked the bad game question, which is, what's the worst game you ever played, and got some interesting responses. Houseless was either thought I was super serious, or thought maybe a bit too much on it with his answer. But, it was cool to see people's impressions on how they felt about the worst game they had played. And I mentioned Neo, and Rom's like, oh, well, I played the Shin Megami Tensei games. It can't be that bad or whatever for difficulty. And I was just like, you will not get past the first hour. I was throwing the gauntlet down on Neo on everyone. And nobody's taken up the charge, but that is... I don't think people realize how bad that game is until they play it. Luckily, Filthy actually was on the way back to where Houseless was kind of, set up his hotel room. So he ended up taking Houseless back, and something that I am extremely grateful to both Mouse and Filthy for is they helped kind of get Houseless around during the event. Really, the only times I drove him around was at the very beginning when I brought him to the event, and at the very end when he had to go back to his hotel at the very end of the event. So I was really grateful to have people assisting with that as well. So I ended up returning to the venue. My car's still locked up. And I go and I tell Jeff, and I'd let him know on that. And in general, we're running really far behind on the schedule. So I tell Jeff, I'm like, listen, like, it's like Jeff and me got this that are there. And I told him a couple times, but this time I told him once again, and I was like, listen, just drop the bouncer from the schedule. It's a 30-minute game. It'll get us somewhat back on schedule. It's not going to draw that much money, and I'd much rather give that time to people to play the games that they really love and really show them off at a marathon. And the thing that got me is Jeff gave me this look like he was either so tired that the words didn't register, or he thought I was shitting him or something like that. And he just gave me the look and walked away. Which wasn't the best communication if he had decided, yeah, okay, I understand or not. But he just kind of gave me the look and then walked away, which ended up being frustrating later. But, like, again, I'm assuming he was running on like 3 hours of sleep in 48 hours. So, I mean, that's just the way things are. So we end up getting back to the hotel room, and I'm worried all night. The minute that I got back, I also thought, I was like, that parking structure's still closed. My PS2 and my copy of the Bouncer are in that car. Unless that place opened before my run, there was literally no way that I was going to be able to run the game. So I immediately got on Twitter and I announced that also. Didn't get communication back that it was confirmed. So I'm like worried the whole night. Got no sleep basically. Due no small part to me coughing all the time. So I'm just like sitting up all night and have heartburn pretty badly. So I got to just sit up and kind of watch some of the event. Got to catch Snowfats doing like the Spider Ritual of the Night game or whatever it was. Ritual of the Night is not what it's called. It's like Rite of the Moon or something. But that was a really interesting watch. I might end up picking up that game, and not necessarily as a speed game, but just trying it out because it looked pretty cool. I ended up having to wake up Mouse super early because I wasn't exactly sure when my game was going to be, and it was getting very close to time for the game just before me to finish up. Once again, gotta thank Wild Mouse. Like, he put together a lot of stuff and really covered for me throughout a lot of the mechanical difficulties and trouble that I had throughout it. So I'm extremely grateful to him, and hopefully I'll be able to make it up to him sometime. But we'll just have to see. Ended up getting back to the venue. Car's still in lockup. It's like, I want to say 8 a.m. at this time because we were about 3 hours behind. And it's fucking locked up. It closed before 9 o'clock on a Friday, and it wasn't open at 7 a.m., and I am fucking livid. And I'm still coughing, and I'm extremely subconscious about it, because I don't know if they dropped the game or not. Luckily, they did. Luckily, they decided to drop Bouncer. There wasn't anything that I was told on it, as far as, like, I wasn't given a scolding or anything like that, which was cool. And I tried to let them know as soon as I could, and I'm glad that all worked out, even if it kind of cost me a lot of sleep. Got to see ANCAP's run, though. Really, Jimmy Poopins came in just before he was about to come on, which was kind of worrying a little bit. And you talk about a time constraint. So Ninja Gaiden 1 in a GDQ would have a 15-minute window, their time slot. They gave him 12:30, which is 30 seconds from what he feels like his PB could be. So ANCAP was really under the gun with this, and Deaths and Ninja Gaiden are no joke, especially to the final boss. Conversely, they gave Jimmy all the time in the world, because Jimmy's run is like, it had like 2 minutes more than he needed in order to complete it. And then they gave 9:30 for Super Mario Bros. 2, which, if you've ever seen Super Mario Bros. 2, deaths in that game are punishing, and that's a rather difficult game to execute over 9 minutes. So, like, the time slotting on that really needed to be better. That being said, I'll tell you what, ANCAP had a fantastic run, considering the hammer luck that he had at certain points. And Jimmy had really, really good commentary. Jimmy had a really strong follow-up run. It's unfortunate that ANCAP had trouble on Super Mario Bros. 2. It's a rough game. Deaths are costly, and he ended up getting a couple game overs, like, later on into the world, so he had to redo some stages as well, which was pretty rough. Meanwhile, after that, I tried calling the building. There's no luck. I get in touch with them, and they're like, yeah, we can't do that. And they say, you'll have to contact the police in order to get into the parking structure. And I'm going to go to Google, and I'm going to look up Santa Ana Police Department. And this worried me more than anything. So they say I have to call up the police department in order to in order to get into this structure, to get into my car, which I've told them it has like basically all of my luggage. The only thing I had was my Xbox 360 that I brought out to go eat with. Like that's it. I had nothing else for like clothes, any of my systems, all that stuff. So I bring up the number for the police department, and immediately on the right for Google, I saw reviews. 1.7 stars, and I want to say it was a 1.6 when I was at the event. And it was funny because Jeff was kind of over my shoulder as I like talked to him about it. He seemed really concerned about it and apologetic. It's not your fault, dude. Like I would say it's probably the parking structure's fault. I'll take some blame in that like maybe I should have been like, you know what, maybe it's for the business, but there was nothing to indicate that at all on the structure. But you know, he seems really concerned and apologetic. And so I look at these reviews and he's kind of reading them over my shoulder, and it's like, let me read a couple. Veronica Nazareth says, some of those cops are corrupt and get away with committing crimes. They attack innocent women. A couple of people that I'm not going to name are examples of corrupt and cowardly cops. The department, Luke McQueenie says, the department is a tragic display of power gone wrong. There are no civic checks and balances. After watching the pot dispensary raid, I am horrified, making fun of a disabled woman, scaring the life out of people only to steal there, and it continues, but I don't think you need to hear more. I believe one that Jeff pointed out was like, the very definition of corruption was the small annotated thing on the review, which was... So you can tell I'm a little concerned with this, because I'm thinking, if I call these guys, I'm worried that they're just going to go, oh, it's in there, and tow my car. And I do not have the money to be getting my car out of lockup with so many things happening. So that was a major concern. But you know what? I thought about it, and I was like, I gotta bite the bullet here, because either they're going to tow it anyway, because it's in the parking structure, and I don't get my stuff anyway, or I find out it gets towed now. You know, like, you might as well just take the gamble. And luckily the officer that I ended up calling them. They said, sure, we'll get somebody up there as soon as we can. Which they were a bit busy at the time, but, you know, that's going to happen Easter weekend. A girl ends up coming out of the building, and I go, wait, how did you come out of that? Isn't this hall locked up? And she's like, oh, I work in the building. And I'm just thinking to myself, it's supposed to be closed. But apparently she can get in with a card. And she offers me this, and I go, okay, yeah, sure, I can do that. So she goes, okay, I'm just going to go across the street and drop off some food, and I'll be back to let you in. This fucking bitch. Okay. She didn't come back for over 30 minutes. I didn't see her until an hour and 10 minutes later, when I had already gotten everything done and she was walking across the street with her friends. At that point, I didn't want to cause a scene, and I was already so pissed off, but it's done. Like, what am I going to do? Get pissed at her for whatever? But you are such a piece of shit. Like, I waited out there for 30 fucking minutes, and it was not nice weather. Like, it was very sunny, and it was pretty warm, and I'm wearing the same shit that I was wearing for, like, 36 hours. And you couldn't have the fucking common decency to drop off the food, which was what you were saying, and you pointed to the place that you were going to, and you couldn't come out and then help me get my car out. Fuck you. Fuck you. Anyway. So I have to call up the cops again. I called them and I said, you know what, I have somebody that can let me into the building. I canceled it. I had to call them again and say, I need to get let in again. Probably about an hour later, they managed to get by. And you know what? I'm glad I called them. Because the guy who showed up, it sucks that I didn't get his name, but the officer who ended up showing up, he was very helpful. He helped me get into the parking structure. I managed to get to my car, and I kind of talked to him about what was happening and what was going on, and he even at the end of it, he was like, "So what's the charity that you guys were doing this for?" And I was like, "It's Charity Water. We're over at the esports arena right now. If you're interested in retro gaming or whatever, you can check it out. We're on Twitch." And he goes, "Oh, okay. Is it open to the public?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I didn't see him personally at the event, but he said he might be interested and might check it out. So that was really cool. Even if he didn't show up, just showing an interest in what we were trying to do there, even if it was, just trying to cajole, or not cajole me, but even if it was to just kind of make me feel at ease. Like, it was really nice that somebody was able to help me out. It's, and again, it's unfortunate I didn't catch the guy's name, but I'm really glad he helped me out. I even got out of a $15 parking fee, which is what I would have had to have paid if I got my car out. Which, it's... But I was really happy with that. So I managed to get out, get my car out of there, immediately park it again across the street. And it's great because get into my bag, get to put on some deodorant, put on another t-shirt, finally feel like a fucking human being again. And it sucks because I missed Red Ninja Josh's run for the most part of Magical Quest, which was something I was looking forward to watching, but that whole fiasco took up a lot of time. Really, in general, I didn't get to talk to Josh nearly as much, but I'll kind of cover that in a couple minutes here. It's... Actually, I'll cover it now, I guess. So, like I said, there were a few people that I really wanted to push that were really cool and welcoming. Again, the Boyks, who did Pepsi Man, and he mentions point and clicks. The Intercom, who was doing Mischief Makers. I didn't get to catch his run, but he was really cool to talk with. Later on, after his runs, I got to talk to Tetsuo, and his Sengoku Basura run was really cool, I felt, when I got to watch it on replay. And just kind of an interesting thing with Streets of Fury as well. Digitized beat 'em up with a really deep combo system was interesting. But there's definitely some people that I miss talking to more just because of kind of the difficulties with the event and fatigue in general. Didn't get to catch Duke Bilgewater at all. Didn't get to catch Snowfats, which I wasn't really looking for him, but after I got to see his spider run and stuff, he seemed like a pretty cool guy. Red Ninja Josh, definitely probably... Yeah, out of everybody on this list, Josh is the person that I'm most disappointed that I didn't get to talk to more. Just schedules never lined up. And it was unfortunate because I really thought, along with ANCAP, he was going to be a person that I wanted to talk to and hang out with quite a bit. And he was trying to set things up actually on the side for kind of a meetup off-site. So it's just really unfortunate. And I hope I get to see him at another Californithon, hopefully, and just hang out. I got to very briefly kind of interact with Peaches. He was kind of working on one of his platforming games, but I didn't get to talk too much with him because I was speaking with Rom at the time. Dolphinth, again, not a guy I was looking for, but when I got to interact with him a little bit when he was learning the Dawn of Sorrows route and stuff, he seemed like a pretty cool guy. Riskbreaker, I kind of wanted to talk to him more. He's the guy that did Double Dragon 3. I very briefly kind of talked a little bit of shop with him about the game when he was doing practice next to Fasta, but I didn't really get to talk to him too much, so kind of missed out on that. Zorlax and me got this. Both of them seemed like really cool guys, but being tech crew, they had their own problems to deal with, I'm sure, especially with their games as well. Shasta as well, who at the time that he was doing his run, I was doing the Dawn of Sorrow practice, so didn't really get to talk to him much, and I know a lot of people have spoken a lot of great things about him. Let's see, the interview. So, I'm kind of skipping ahead here, but, later at Saturday, me and Villagin had planned to do the interview after he had been done with his games committee thing for GDQ. And as I mentioned, I did not get a hold of a laptop that my friend was supposed to get, and Mouse was kind of busy doing other things. So I had originally hoped that I could get maybe Mouse to help out. That being said, he had no commitment towards it. And I mean that in not a terrible way, sorry. That sounds awful, let me rephrase that. He was not under any obligation to help me with it. It was just, if he was able to help, I would have really welcomed it. But, you know, like, I wanted him to enjoy the event, especially with how much he had to sacrifice to help me out and help Houseless get around and stuff. It would have been a total shitball of me to be like, no, you need to do this and help me out. You need to provide a computer. You need to work the back end. But just didn't have the PCs that I wanted to. I really wanted to do something with multiple camera angles and have a bit more mic presence so I could have better audio, but, you know, just had to make it happen, unfortunately. Had to borrow Vuligen's PC, actually, to run it, and he actually had to lend his expertise for about 30 minutes for us to set it up. It ended up being just my Yeti, my webcam, and his laptop. And you know what? With the technical problems aside with it, I was really frustrated that I didn't get to produce it in the way I wanted to, especially for our first live interview. But you know what? It was a great interview. I'm sad that things didn't mechanically work out, but I was happy that we were able to do it. After we did it, and I'll have that out kind of as soon as I can. I'm still working on it very diligently. We ended up going out, getting some some nice pho, rather. It was really nice to have a good meal, especially after all of the problems that I had been having recently. So one of the problems at the event that I don't want to talk too much on, again, it's going to be covered in another video, is this venue was kind of dumb. I'm super happy that they gave us access to the venue and the equipment for free, but they did not allow us. It was kind of difficult to get in and out of the venue after closing time. So anywhere from like 9 p.m. to like 7 or 8 a.m., it was really difficult to get in and out. And they weren't even, to my knowledge, they weren't even able to get people in. So like at the time that I say this, or at the time that I had heard this, I should say, for this to happen. So I ended up staying the night at the event with Vuligen and stuff, and the other runners. And I wasn't sure if I could get in for my run because, again, the schedule was kind of uncertain, and I didn't know when the venue was going to open or anything like that, so I just got there. And unfortunately, because of that, I didn't get in time to hang out with Rom and Mouse, and I guess they hung out at the hotel room and had a great time kind of playing Soten and some drinks, stuff like that. So that was an event that was kind of unfortunate that I missed out on. I didn't get any time to work on the Dawn of Sorrow route either as a result. But I managed to rest. Once again, just too much coughing. Just like crazy, keeping me from really sleeping. If you're noticing a pattern here. Just completely getting destroyed by my lungs. But you know what? We managed to get to Guac. And so let's talk a little bit about Guac. And I wanted to kind of address with this video also a lot of the stuff that I was seeing in chat. Because there was a lot of negativity, I felt, or things that looked bad on the event runners that were not their fault. So here's the thing. Mechanical stuff for Guac. The controller. I mentioned that I was using an Xbox One controller. The Xbox One controller, I don't know if it's an Elite. I think it's just a basic controller. I don't know if this can really show at all. But, yeah, that's what I had. I originally had that from the Egavania stream. The reason I had it is because I did not have access to a wired 360 controller, because there's not one for about 100 miles around me and not at a price I'm willing to pay, so I decided to get that. It's a plug-and-play controller. That's just the way it kind of worked out. So that's why I had that controller. Now, why did I use it at the event? They mentioned that the PS3 controllers were working on a previous day. I tried to put in my PS3 controller right before we started, because I was like, I even told Vuligen, I was like, I wonder if I'm going to get lucky. So I plugged it in, did not read it. So I don't know if they dropped the drivers or if they needed some sort of setup to make it work or whatever, but it was not working for me when I tried it. So I went with the Xbox One pad. The reason why I didn't do a DualShock 3 driver is I had looked online briefly and I did not find a DualShock 3 driver that I felt comfortable downloading onto a computer that wasn't mine. A lot of the programs that I was browsing looked very shady, and I wasn't sure if they were going to be compatible with Windows 10 or if they were going to disrupt Windows 10, because I don't know that operating system. And honestly, a lot of stuff gets messed up with that because it's still very new. It hurt me, but I expected it because it was something that I had to deal with in the Egavania stream. So with that in mind, also just in general, I lost 5 days from being sick during a critical time where I wanted to practice Guac, but at the same time, I knew that I would have to train just entertainment more because I really wanted to show off Guac in a good light. One thing I did mention is I forgot to mention VSync. I turned VSync off with that game. It causes lots of screen tearing, but it's very useful for the run, keeps input delay very low, and it's easier to buffer certain movements out of a loading screen. The DRM3 version, so I provided it, and I took it off afterward. I wasn't sure what the state of downloading games from Steam was on the computer, and I will take complete blame for this. I was neglectful in getting things set up beforehand due to the interview and parking issue. Basically, the tech guys were as accommodating as possible. I'd like to throw that out there. I'm super glad that Vuligen was able to hang out and was able to provide commentary. And I'm an idiot with doors, apparently, because what happened was, for door number 3, I was expecting to get through the door by pressing up. And again, if you've ever used the D-pad for the Xbox One, it just didn't read my up input, so I ended up quitting before I left. That being said, I did have a glitch when I was setting up a save file where it didn't autosave, like I mentioned in the actual run. And I think that was just the computers don't autosave as quickly as my one at home. That was like the worst plant maze ever, which I have a note. I kind of have a notes of the run here. So what I have written down is, a glitch during autosave happened in practice. Worst plant maze. Great highway to hell in Chad. Phenomenal, by the way. Probably the best I've ever had. Bad Shitabe fight, just in general, with a death and missing the infinite. Kind of a bad hitbox coming off of the infinite chain to start it. Let's see. Played to the crowd also at some time, which lost a little bit of time as well. But I was still really happy overall with the performance. We'll just have to see what happens with Guac in the future. I know GDQ is supposed to get it. It might be the last time you see Guac, unless something kind of extreme happens, which is disappointing, but a topic for another time. After that, after I'd finished with Guac, got lots of sleep. Because I finally had a car and didn't have any responsibilities. Unfortunately, I was able to stay for Vuligen's runs, but I was just dead. I had to rest, especially with what was going to be happening later. Woke up, got cleaned up, got to go to the venue, got prepped for Dawn of Sorrow. Immediately learned upon coming there that it was going to be a 4-man co-op, which was pretty awesome, and it was a much easier route than what I was originally learning, which is cool. We ended up doing it with me, Munchakoopas, and Dolphin doing support for ROM. It's honestly one of the best events at Californithon, if not the best. If you have not checked out the VOD, absolutely do so, because it was extremely fun and really interesting. Houseless also seemed extremely interested in the Legend of Zelda 4 Swords adventure, so I'll have to check that out at some point. But he was like, there were a lot of people to talk to, and he seemed really glued on watching that run on like the kind of spectator monitor. So, kind of jumping ahead to Soten. So, obviously, Soten's setup was strained, but that was a little bit expected. Mouse has a very convoluted setup, as I mentioned. There was a wrong Twitch link for Mouse, by the way, so be sure to catch him. His Twitch is, so it's spelled 3snow _ P7IM, and it's basically Wild Mouse upside down with a little bit of leet speak. So once again, 3snow _ P7IM. So yeah, make sure you check him out. Let's see. What else do I have here? Lots of people. Oh, wow, so crazy. So what was really cool is we had a lot of people that were for the couch, which was awesome. And Something to mention about the setup for the race is it had only been just figured out. Like they had issues. It was mentioned earlier, like very early in the event, that they were having issues like kind of capturing 3 monitors and getting that worked out. And luckily they were able to get it worked out basically a few hours before the actual run, which was nice. But that was something to be concerned about. Mouse played great. Sub 8 with killing the warg at the beginning of the game and causing an amazing amount of graphic lag is extremely good, to put it lightly. Commentary was solid throughout. You had a mix of Romscout's brevity with kind of like a little bit of my information dump and feeding him questions, which is my kind of preferred style. First try zip inside of Reverse Chapel, which is great. No spell errors, which is, it sounds silly, but that's a big thing. Like, you can mess up spell inputs pretty easily in that game, especially with, again, the graphical lag messing up your inputs even more. A great showcase of an often hidden category. Was really pleased with how that turned out. So the race happened late, obviously, like 3 hours later than expected. And I'm still dying, by the way. If you watch throughout the VODs where I'm a part of it, you'll often see me either turn my head away from the mic and cough, or like I'll just cough. But I coughed so hard before the race during the setup period that I was like over the trash can because I thought I was going to throw up. And I'm sure there were people out there that thought it was nerves or something. It was not. I was literally just coughing so hard and so violently and so much that I felt like I was going to throw up. But you know what? Like, I knew with how late it was and how tired everyone was, I tried to bring energy as much as I could. And I'd like to think that I did a pretty good job of that, especially during that downtime among the people that were at the event. Long downtime. I have that marked down here. Lots of people actually showed up and watched. And, you know, I don't know why. Like, I was really touched by that. I'm not sure why people decided to stay, if it was like, oh, we gotta see Rom give commentary, or like just the people involved. Like, you know, Mouse and Houseless, I know, were really pushing the event. Most of the people that I thought would have been kind of in my corner were people that were, you know, on the couch with me and stuff. But it was really cool to have, I mean, it had to have been at least 25 people, which doesn't sound like a lot, but considering how small the event was, that was a lot of people at a very late hour to show up. And they stayed by, you know. They stayed and they watched Soten. They caught Mouse's run. They waited throughout the whole setup period, you know, and they stayed. And they got to see Soten, which was awesome to me. And I would love to hear people on their views on it, like why they stayed or why they thought that it was something that they felt they wanted to be a part of. But, like, all I have written down here is it was really an honor to show a game that I care about to an audience of just a group of people that I really respect, and, you know, some people that I got to know on site. So Filthy Turtle, getting the naming inside of there. I insisted. I'm still pretty positive that he put in Filthy D, but they kept I'm telling you, that's probably what he wrote down, but they insisted it was just Filthy. So, you know, whatever. He paid. I delivered both times, by the way. So mechanically, going for the race, I mentioned I wasn't practicing much. And that was kind of on purpose. I did spend about an hour before we got to the Soten block, but that was just to warm up. You know, when you're talking about an event like this, you're done with practice. By the time you hit the event, maybe even a couple days before, you are about as good as you are going to get at a game. Like, so you no longer are trying to practice, you are just trying to get yourself mentally focused. You're not going to learn new stuff, you're not going to pick up new tech that quickly and be able to integrate it into a race format particularly. And that was shown when I spent, again, I mentioned for Guac, only about an hour on a certain trick, and I ended up failing it 3 or 4 times. Wasn't that punishing, but it just really shows that, this stuff needs to come beforehand before you can take it to an event or for a race. Uh, so, practice was kind of off limits for me. I had just warmed up my hands, so I felt comfortable doing the exhaustive things that you have to do in Soten. I chose to sit off camera. That was my decision. As much as I wanted to be on camera, I came to race and to show off a game that I love. And I'm also glad that Houseless got to sit on camera because he was further back during the Maria run and he was kind of behind the couch, so you didn't get to catch him much. So I'm glad he got to get some front and center stage. And when it came to this race, I mentioned it's about the intangibles at a marathon when you go to a live event. Online, or to an in-person event, I should say. Online, it's the same equipment that you have. You might have to do something a little different with your setup, like how you stream or whatever, but everything's still the same. You go to an offline event, go to a real-life event, it's the intangibles that are going to make things difficult on you. And I knew, again, from everybody that I watched, I even would ask them the question afterward. Distance was an issue. And that's not to do with the tech crew. It's like, that's just what has to happen. They have to feed so many cables. There's only so much space you have. You need to get everybody on camera. You need to sit people that far away if you're going to do those things. And I knew that was going to be an issue. I was like, I cannot play Soten the way I want to if I'm sitting 10 feet away on a monitor that I don't play on HD that I don't play on because I normally play on composite. So I knew this was not going to work. I had to sit in front of that monitor to see everything. And so because of that, I sacrificed being in front of the mic. I sacrificed being in front of the camera. Another thing that was mentioned, the gentleman's agreement. I was the first person that proposed it. I think it's important. I still think it was important, and I'm glad we did it. Books can still kill your run, but I would much rather that books kill a run than for somebody to just not even be in the run because they failed death skip, or for Richter soft lock to happen. And those were the two places that we had it. We had it Richter soft lock, and we were ready to reset at the beginning of the game. And that was a pre-made save for Richter. And it's not worth winning a race if you don't get to show off the game properly. Regardless of, kind of what happened with the race itself, I thought it was important to show off a game as best as you can. So let's see. The race. So the restart hurt me a little bit, but you know what? Better damage stacks, so... Once again, the distance in the monitor. Kind of a thing for the other guys as well, and that, again, showcases that. These guys can hit those tricks, basically 100% of the time if they're in front of their monitor at home. So distance is an issue, especially when you're trying to look for 1 or 2 pixels on a huge screen. Let's see, what else do I have here? Honestly, I played like I practiced. There was no book safety strat. I planned on learning one, but I lost 5 days to being sick, so I couldn't learn it. And like I said, I'm not going to try to pick up something that I don't have enough time to train. So I just went for it. If I did have enough time to train, I probably would have learned the punch strat from Ben Outen. I just think it's the best kind of race safe strat that there is. Potion's pretty good as well. I would definitely recommend either of those, but I just didn't have the time to learn them. 407 Maria. Not bad, especially since I didn't get the double kill on Slogger Gaibon. Ended up getting the sub 8. I lost a little bit of time because I spent more time getting the death skip, but that's okay. Just getting it is more important. Great Skelorang room. Managed to skip all of them without having to kill them. And I will mention this, when I got to the books, when I watched the VOD, I should have been terrified with the pattern that book gave me. If it had just been a little bit earlier or a little bit later, I would have traded with that book. And then, I would have lost another 12 seconds at least. But luckily, and again, that's looking back on it. But you know what? When I was in the race itself, I didn't even think like that. It was just kind of like, fuck it. This is the way I practiced. I'm just going to do it. And, it worked out. It was great. Houseless had a pretty rough book jump to start, but he actually did a really, really good recovery, which I'm glad that he kind of studied recovery strats for that. Rough beats on MP for Moose. He kind of messed up on the first jump a little bit, and then on the second jump, he just didn't have the MP to be able to mist over to finish his recovery. So that sucked. Had a little bit of a rough clock tower when it came to the pendulum room. I pushed the pendulum room and the big outer chamber a lot. Big outer chamber, I missed a wing smash that I wanted to do. And pendulum room, I did it was a rough clock tower. I missed new stuff, but it was good old stuff. I can't say that it was like a terrible clock tower, just out of date, shall we say. Richter skip. So this was the thing that actually killed me the most about my run in this. The second star that I was trying to throw to hit the switch after you break the secret block to drop the stairs, I know that was a lot, it didn't come out. So I had to lose a lot of time missing a couple of attempts and untransforming to hit the switch again, which is poor, but you know what? When you run Soten enough, that's going to happen, especially in a no reset run, which I'll get to the concept of that in a little bit. But that was the biggest time loss in the run. Had a great reverse chapel, in my view. First try relic skip, which was really important because it was being brutal for me at practice at times, like 2 to 3 misses. And those are long misses because of how long Heart Refresh is. I remember I had one race with Talik before the marathon where I lost 5 minutes to just missing it over and over again. By my timing, I got a flat 18, which is awesome. It's different because of how they started the timer, and they don't have the break that we normally have at the beginning of Soten. But yeah, it was like a flat 18 by my timing. I'm a little disappointed I couldn't cut, another 1 second or 2 from the Richter skip, but I'm totally fine with that. It was really good of a performance. Again, the only thing that really stood out to me as being poor was the Richter skip. After that, just support. I was really pushing for Mouse and Houseless to kind of finish strong, considering that they were having a rough mid-game. And I was talking about no reset versus PB run. So I talked about it a little bit after it, but it's such a different thing to do no reset or a race compared to a PB run. Like, everybody sees the PB or the world record if they look up your videos. What they don't see is all the failed attempts in between, all the resets that happen 2 minutes in, 10 minutes in, all that different stuff. So when you're talking about a game like Soten, where certain tricks can easily cost you tons of time, could the runs have been better? I definitely think they could have been better, but that's just the reality of racing. Sometimes you're going to get a bad roll on things, sometimes you just aren't going to be able to perform certain things that you would do normally, or that if you didn't perform, you would reset on. So you don't really get to see the full scope of how consistent you are with something until you are forced to do it again and again in a run, not just in a vacuum. I meant everything I said after my run and in the post-race. I'm always a big person on respecting the history that comes with a community. So it was nice to have that type of platform. I noticed my voice was kind of stuttering a bit. I don't remember being overly emotional or having a lot of adrenaline, but maybe that was the case. Something really stood out to me watching back the VOD, and it's something that Rom said. I'm paraphrasing and I'm taking a bit of a quote out of the larger context, but what he said is, this felt like old GDQs. And when people talk about old GDQs and the structure of them and how much fun they had and how much more relaxed and nonchalant it was compared to kind of the production that it is now, that really stuck out to me. And it felt like this is something that will hopefully develop large. I didn't want to say bigger. Bigger implies, making it more corporate, making it a production again, more like GDQs. I really hope that it grows, and grows in a way that is beneficial for the community and the hobby it represents. Post-race Hydrostorm was pretty sweet, even though Rom completely blew out everybody's ears by yelling directly into the mic. And another cool thing is I mentioned how many people were there, and I had four or five people come up to me and mention to me that it was a great run and race, that they really enjoyed it. And a couple of the people were people that I didn't even meet, throughout the course of the thing. They literally just felt like coming up and being like, hey, like that was really cool. I really enjoyed watching the race. Like, even if it wasn't somebody that I interacted with, felt really good. Just to have people that were that excited about watching Symphony of the Night. So, moving forward, after race, my notes. Okay, so we go outside. Jeff actually went out while we were taking all of Mouse's 400 pounds of equipment out, and we got to shoot the shit about him, kind of like hear his thoughts on progression and stuff. I did mention to him that, like, you know what, I'll save that for the other thing. But it was strained on the tech side of stuff with people talking with one another and communicating, because it's just, again, they're working on so little sleep and they had so few people working on stuff. But it was cool that Jeff seemed to be very receptive to talking with Rom, who has obviously quite a bit of extensive experience with these types of events, and just kind of gauging how he felt about it and his thoughts on it. So it was good to see that his mind was in the right place with that. And Rom was very open and supportive of it. So it was nice to see that, especially since, again, it seemed like he had been so dead. It felt like he was almost revitalized for a little bit to be able to talk and discuss things, which was awesome. Really hope that, again, they get more people to staff it so that, people that are on staff that are running behind the scenes can kind of step forward and get to talk with people, relax, get a bite to eat besides takeout from somewhere. Let's see. So we decided that afterward we were going to go ahead and, have a few drinks back at the hotel and relax. Ended up going to the store. Talked music a little bit with Rom, because that was actually something that, if you ever listen to a Rom stream, he really doesn't listen to music. He tends to just, listen to the game music a lot, so got to talk to him a little bit with that. Ended up grabbing drinks that everybody was far too tired to finish, so there was a lot left over. Got to chill in the hotel. Ended up playing some card games. Rom brought a game, Love Letter, which is pretty awesome. If you guys haven't played it, definitely recommend it. Mouse showed us Squash and Set, which are very logic and thinking-based puzzles, which is a terrible game to try and play when you're tired and drunk. But they were cool. They were awesome games, just the wrong games for that situation. So Mouse ended up going to sleep because he was really tired, but we ended up staying with Rom for quite a while, me and Houseless. Got to discuss kind of Twitch politics and practices, since Houseless was interested in that stuff. I know he is more interested in streaming, so he's, again, like, making it happen, figuring out what he needs to do to be successful and understanding what his goal should be. So I'm sure that was a very nice conversation that he had. It seemed like a lot of basic things to me, coming from my perception that, like, Twitch is obviously an amazing tool and connecting force for people, but in the end they are a business, especially with Amazon. So a lot of this stuff seemed pretty basic for me. If you're gonna push towards Twitch to become like a partner or something like that, just have a business mindset is one of the biggest things. Like, how do you make yourself marketable? So House ended up having problems, I guess, with his hotel room. So we had to leave quite a bit early. I didn't get any sleep, but I knew that before I took him. I didn't get super drunk, but I did have a few drinks, and I was like, I can't take you until, And he didn't force me to take him either or anything like that. He was just like, I probably should get back there around this time, so, ended up sobering up and kind of waking up over 3 hours, and then I ended up taking him there. Went over there, got to meet the other person that he hangs out with, Tammy. Got to hang out a little bit more, shoot the shit once again. Kind of took him where he needed to go also. And once again, it's just I can't express like um he's trying to make his streaming more of a thing, you know, like and really trying to push himself and make himself marketable. And it's like again, the stuff that he has to do to try and make it happen in stream in general, it's you know, it's it'd be interesting to see him in a tech position where he has the ability to have more resources and more purview and all that type of stuff. So I kind of wish him the best. Hopefully he can maybe get into a field like that. I think it would be pretty beneficial for him. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where everything dropped off at. The only other note I have is I ended up driving back. Pretty easy drive. I'm about 2 hours away or so from the event. So yeah, overall, extremely positive event. Very, very glad that I attended. Hope that there's another one if there is, and you know everything works out. I would really love to meet at the event. Houseless was also talking about doing some sort of meetup as well, between kind of the California people. I think he said sometime into September. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure. I'm gonna try to make it, but you know, honestly, as far as like finances go, Californithon and RPG Limit Break, pretty rough. I still submitted to GDQ because I was like, I will make it happen if it, you know, I get in, but you know, it's looking like that's probably not going to happen. So probably for the best as far as my pocketbook's concerned. But yeah, that's kind of my California recap. So, you know, take it for what you will. I'm going to be doing another one that's going to be more mechanically focused. I know they had a discussion recently on the Discord about, like, you know, what people thought about the event or what do you think they needed changed. I'll be sure to do that. I'll be making that one more of a private video. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this recap. I'll be posting it on YouTube. Probably a lot longer than it needed to be. But you know, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys another time. Prepping for RPG Limit Break, so more Parasite Eve and other stuff.